Warning, the following video has flashing lights and also includes content that may be deemed inappropriate for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Bigfoot's Barbershop. Yes, once again, you found your way into the darkness of the Fox Den for this episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. Yet please allow me to feed. Absolutely delicious. Even I get parched sometimes and need to replenish my power source. And now that Mr. Barber has released my shackles and set me free, it is once again time to take a walk into the darkness with a Midnight Society.
Stood up. I said, oh my god, it's a werewolf, and everybody in the car freaked out.
My creatures of the night, yes, welcome back to another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on Star Fox Radio. This is the home and the stomping ground of the Midnight Society. And once again, we open up our infamous book and flip through the chapters in an attempt to figure out what is occurring with missing people, ancient civilizations, and all kinds of unknown potential Dogman activity. We once again have Brian Barber, aka Bigfoot's Barbershop, that has found his way by the fire in an attempt to help us. How you doing tonight, my friend?
We are doing good. We are back healthy. It looks like a really cool topic to add to the repertoire of stuff we've already done. How are you?
That's excellent, man, that you're on the up and up. And man, just been editing. Before I linked up with you, I was watching the Bruins game and Sugar Sway. Yes, Jeremy Swayman with a big shutout. So that was absolutely excellent. My niece and my little brother were at the game, so that's good stuff. Been watching football all day, hoping that my fantasy players step it up a little bit, which, well, my sister-in-law is going to be a little unhappy, but I'm going to be hopefully, yeah, a little raha at the end of the night here. And just editing a video with, of course, Miss Jessica Jones that I should be able to put out afterwards. And just a whole bunch of editing, man. What about you, dude?
I have actually been on the lookout I did a real quick mock-up for Halloween of Old Man Logan and even dyed the hair and the beard, and it was permanent. Nobody thought I would go that far, including me. That took an extra beverage or two to do. But when I actually dressed in the part with the white tank top and the brown jeans, I think I pulled it off pretty well. Now, for work, I couldn't do that. I had to wear a Battle Fitness tank top. So what I did was I wrote in red liquid, you know, Logan lift here, and then had the Battle Fitness logo down on it. But I managed to pull a few bodybuilder tricks and dropped a quick 10 pounds in 2 weeks to do it. So I look pretty shredded. You know, if you cut the head off, it's Logan from the neck down. So we're gonna go a little more advanced for Comic Con out here in Michigan.
That's excellent, man. Sounds like great stuff. And for me, where I'm from, like Spawn says, every day is Halloween. So I love the whole spooky aspect in general, just because my late mother, rest in peace, mom, but she always got me wrapped up in the whole, vampire, werewolves, and witches. She used to always think witches were cool. So, yeah, just in general, man. I mean, spooky season is pretty cool, but like I said, I really don't just have a season. I find that stuff cool and appealing all the time. So,
Oh yeah, and the only reason why this is the first time I've dressed up since I was like 12, and that was because we got this sweet little girl at work. Little girl, she's 21, but where she used to work had Halloween parties and everything, and the gym doesn't really do that. She wanted to throw some kind of party, and with as much energy and devotion and uh, just pure joy she brings to the gym and the team, it was like I couldn't let her down. So I that's what I decided to dress up as. And like I said, in the white tank top and brown jeans, it looks good. But being it was for work, I did the Battle Fitness tank top, matching pumpkin pajama pants. So it kind of took the seriousness out of Wolverine when he's got pumpkins on his butt saying Jack.
the jacked butt cheeks, more or less.
Yeah, so I guess that was another tribute to Hugh Jackman, but you know,
To everyone out there, that's how Mr. Bigfoot's Barbershop was able to wrap up his wifey up there. He just had those big old jacked up booty cheeks, you know?
yeah, exactly.
That's so funny, dude. That's awesome. Well, that's great stuff right there, man. And well,
I,
tonight, dude, I had a pretty interesting topic that I thought you might be intrigued in as well. And it's something that I found interesting for a while, but I was just speaking to Jessica Jones, the cryptid huntress, the other night. And like I said, our episode will be out very shortly. Well, in that, we actually touch on how people have made references in history, even in present day times, but also there are depictions of what looked to be cynocephaly. There we go again, that warrior culture from 290 BC, all decked out in the armor that they would be wearing, using swords and katanas, fighting what seems and looks in these depictions, and also some of these stories and such, reptilians. And what is really also more fascinating about that topic is we do know the cynocephaly lived in caves and up in the mountains, okay? And they had villages and towns basically within these caves and mountain systems. Okay. Well, to everybody out there that is not informed about this, I was introduced to some pretty interesting stuff. And I'm going to unfortunately butcher the terminology here, but I will do my best. So, the Silurian hypothesis is a theory that was created by Gavin Schmidt and Adam Frank in 2018. Okay. And what they talk about here is they believe that humans have not been the first intellectual life on Earth, and that in actuality, there have been other cultures that have evolved prior to us and also alongside of us. This hypothesis explores the possibility of detecting evidence of a pre human civilization in the geological record. The hypothesis suggests that if there were civilizations before humans, then almost all signs of them would have been lost over time, unfortunately. Some possible signs that researchers might look for include climate change, anomalies in sediment, traces of nuclear waste, distinctive patterns of sediment deposition, spikes in metal levels in the sediments, non naturally occurring stable synthetic molecules such as plastics. The hypothesis also speculates that artifacts from past civilizations could be found potentially on the moon and Mars, where erosion and tectonic activity are less likely to erase evidence. And as if that's not creepy, mind blowing, interesting, all up in an enigma, it's very unlikely that direct evidence of pre human civilization like technological artifacts will ever be found because of the rarity of fossilization. However, indirect evidence, such as we had listed earlier, along with these, time, if there were civilizations before humans, then almost all signs of them would have been lost by now. Purpose, the theory's goal is to find ways to detect signs of ancient civilizations here inner Earth or on other planets. Some possible clues for a pre human civilization include carbon. There have been enough fossil carbon to fuel an industrial civilization since the Carboniferous period. Wow. Sediment, large coastal deltas could indicate increased erosion, and rivers or canals swollen by increased rainfall. Nitrogen, spikes in nitrogen in sediments could indicate industrial scale agriculture. And before I get into some more of that, how do you feel about all of that right there, man?
I think it's a lot to swallow. Um, Kind of half in jest, but at the same time, when you talk about the civilization before us, it makes you wonder, how they say, Hollywood imitates life, or life imitates Hollywood, whichever way it is. Remember a show called Land of the Lost that had the Sleestaks in it, the
Yes.
lizard people that would, so makes you, they portrayed them back in and having advanced crystal tech and all that stuff. So to me, that was, as soon as you say that, that's the first thing that pops in my mind is that. But the fact that I always wondered how they were going to prove, I don't think we're the first ones here, and some of the finds, like that one computer, they still can't explain that's over 2,000 years old. I forget where they found it, somewhere it was in the ocean. It's not supposed to exist. It's well over 2,000 years old, and they still can't figure out how it works to this day. And then if you're talking interplanetary, if Mars was supposedly just like Earth, what happened to the atmosphere? Was it something from space, or did something happen with the civilizations on the planet that caused that for the atmosphere to be blown off? So the fact that now they're actually looking at things like and able to detect change, and that's pretty darn a pretty big question to answer, don't you think?
All that's completely insane. And you want some more gnarliness is, well, just think for a second. And this is a hypothesis of mine that I've had for quite a long time. And I do know some other people might have more information on it. But picture when the Greeks and Romans spoke about fire in the sky, okay? And well, what would Mars look like to Earth back then if there was, say, some sort of battle up there and they blew themselves up, kind of like the way, say we're heading right now? Would that not look like fire in the sky? And it is completely interesting as to why Mars was like Earth at one point in time, but now is pretty much just a deceased planet to an extent that had all its nutrients and stuff just sucked from it pretty much. And mind-boggling because, at the North American Dogman Project, I know Jody breaks it down into potentially paranormal, physical, and extraterrestrial. And extraterrestrial does not have to mean from outer space. It could also be from, say, inner Earth or such, or even aquatic from what the ocean can be extraterrestrial. But there are reports of people that have claimed to have seen astronauts and such that have seen what looks to be like cynocephaly, man, just decked out in strange spacesuits and stuff. So I don't know. I don't know how I potentially feel about that. I do know that I believe the cynocephaly exist and that they are physical and that Herodotus and all them did see them. I don't know what their origins are, but I guess in hypothesis and theory, and as a journalist, it needs to be looked at that they potentially could have been extraterrestrial and yeah, came here way before we even existed.
No, totally agree. They, the possibilities are endless of what came before us, especially the the more we're finding and can't explain, it came from somewhere. Someone before us, that had hands or telepathic abilities to put stuff together was here to create this. And it it boggles my mind how they can tell the about climate change, though. I wonder how they do that as far as layers in the earth during a specific time period that they're looking for, or uh, what's the anomalies in the sediment. So, what's considered an anomaly? Do they
Yeah,
know?
all the above right there. I mean, they're going to look for
So, I mean, it's
contaminants, yeah, that didn't belong at that point in time. I mean, if let's say, a modern day thing such as like titanium or something, right? This is just, I'm throwing this out there, but say they find titanium back from the Jurassic period. Well, that's a little strange considering titanium is supposed
yeah,
to be a man-made metal, but that didn't happen. But, that's just what I'm saying. So that's how they would be able to tell stuff like that, man. Things that are definitely foreign to what we know in that area at that point in time. And also, like you were saying, I mean, if modern day nuclear waste has been found at a prehistoric site where there hasn't been encroachment from modern day man or humankind, that could either mean one of two things: that there's nuclear sludge leaking from somewhere to there, or that culture had some sort of exposure to that more or less. So it is really interesting, man.
yeah, and I can see where they would the unnaturally occurring stable synthetic plastics I can get.
So that right there, though, is some really gnarly stuff because I've always been pretty on board with the hypothesis that William White and some of our other science members have had, like I just said, about the cynocephali being a very successful civilization that just, well, fell to an extent, and they are in sporadic numbers now and just don't dwell in this massive city like Rome or something like they used to. And I have some more interesting information for you because let's be real here. Sure, this could have been individuals such as our ancestors building these cities under the ground. But the majority of us, besides myself, because I mean, I think nighttime and the moon and stuff super cool, but a lot of people don't like darkness, dude, and they definitely enjoy sunlight, okay? So why would these ancient cultures that would have been, say, ancestors to you and I, build cities under the ground unless something above them, like a massive war or such, was occurring? But at these points in time, though, there wasn't any of this. This predates all the modern day wars and such. Why would they have built underground cities when you had all these choices to be above in the forest and such, unless they weren't humanish, such as you and I? And the reason I say that is, well, underground cities are networks of linked spaces below the ground that can be used for many purposes, including living, working, shopping, and defense. Some examples of underground cities include in Montreal, Quebec, the largest underground city in the world, with over 32 kilometers of tunnels and access to many attractions, including shops, cinemas, museums, and the Bell Center hockey arena. Darinchku, Cappadocia, Turkey, a network of tunnels and rooms that once were home to over 20,000 people, was discovered. This strange area was first opened to the public in 1965. La Libya, Ethiopia, a World Heritage Site where 11 Christian churches were carved out of volcanic rock below the surface. These churches are connected by underground passageways, caves, and catacombs. Cobar Pede, Australia, a city where residents live underground to stay cool in the summer and warm in the winter to protect themselves from strong winds and dust storms. Mount Buller, Australia, a mountain resort town with underground facilities. So, I mean, right there, dude. Okay, you have that last one for transportation and storage, right? And all these other ones that are some are ancient, some are potentially still being used, they said, but Who built these, man? Did we just build these or did we modify these structures that, oh, wait a second, there's reports of supposedly ancient cities that were underground. And wait a second, now we have these that we've built off of. What about the other ones that aren't built off of? And I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that too, man.
Well, yeah, because somebody had to have the tools and the capacity and the knowledge to do that underground without everything caving in around them. I don't think, you know, Carrie the caveman had that kind of ability, let alone the manpower. I mean, 32 kilometers of tunnels and rooms, and not only that, but trying to, as far as airflow, and it couldn't have been built by evolution.
No,
I guess it'd be the way we'll leave it at that.
it was modified,
You
like you
know,
said, most likely by us. I mean, come on. Animals at the end of the day, path of least resistance. I mean, if you have the extra money, sure, you build a house from scratch. But don't most people just go into one that's already pre-made? Same thing with a bear. Bear's not going to necessarily have to bust out a new den all the time. They're just going to go to one that's already made. And another interesting thing too is in California. I do not know the exact date. Jessica also covered it. I had heard about this as before because I don't know, I like to learn and such, but there was a historian slash he might have been a geologist that was really interested into the topic of supposed underground cities or an underground city dwelling beneath Los Angeles and such. And a lot of the indigenous cultures at this point in time had spoken about how there once was a race of reptilians. Like we were saying, cynocephaly fighting reptilians. Wow, underground. Interesting, because, well, cynocephaly supposedly live underground as well. But these reptilians had collected all kinds of gold and valuable things from us and stored them down in this massive underground area slash city. And there was a lot of credence pointing to the topic that there was an underground city, whether it was from reptilians or not, who knows? But there was credence that this area was there. So the state of California gave this gentleman a certain amount of time to be able to try and do this because it was literally like right in the heart of everything. And it was pretty much just one misfortune after another for him. It was raining and they ended up having mechanical issues and just shit out of luck, I guess, man. And he was never really able to dig fully down to the area he had wanted to. And I mean, they had started digging in a wrong spot, like I said, all kinds of things. So he ran out of time. And well, ever since then, no one else has really tried to do that. But that's also something that's very interesting, too, because I mean, there's that mention of another ancient supposed civilization underneath ground.
sounds like a more historical version of Oak Island. Deep underground treasure and right underneath people's feet.
Yeah, I mean, something's got to be about that. At the end of the day, like I've said numerous times, okay, and I encourage everybody out there, look this up yourself. The Greeks and Romans were not about people that were really considered artists or poets and stuff. Man, that was kind of frowned upon, okay? So not many people chose that path, all right? And philosophers and such, same thing. That's good for us here as historians and journalists. But back then, someone like Alexander the Great probably really didn't think too highly of a supposed philosopher. This dude was all about trying to more or less be like a god and conquering. So, what I'm trying to get at here is both of those civilizations did not document things that aren't documented elsewhere, meaning they just didn't waste their time on quote unquote, say like fairy tales or something. So, say, I'm just giving an example again. Okay, you know how the Brothers Grimm is documented, so you and I know about that? Well, something like that back in the Greek and Roman points time would have never been documented. You would have never heard of Brothers Grimm from them or something. They don't have time for those things, okay? They're documenting, where they're conquering, the structures they're building, the religion they were trying to push, whatever, man, all that stuff. So for them, whether it was Cestius, Herodotus, Alexander the Great, why are they making references to this? Okay. Why are they even taking time to speak about something if it didn't occur? Because for the most part, like I said, everything else can be documented by other people that have spoke about it, whether it was battles that a different side also documented it, etc. So you have these prevalent people speaking about this, and then you have cultures from India that are saying the same dang thing at a different point in time about these cultures that live up in the mountains that were canine humanish. Okay. Then you have people in the Middle East speaking about this as well. Well, why is this? I mean, this predates before anything could have really influenced their opinions about these things, or even for them to have heard about. There's pretty much a very slim chance that somebody over in India would have heard about the Greeks and Romans and Herodotus. At that point in time, it was unfolding to be battling the cynocephaly because you had to travel to document
Yeah.
things and all kinds of such. So for the odds of them to even have heard about that are 0 to none. So why are they speaking about it too?
Not only that, uh, communication even between the two would have been impossible. I mean, you get not only the language barrier or getting notes, you got no internet, no TV, telegraph. Even the note Patrick, the carrier pigeon would have, would be in a different language, so they couldn't decipher it anyway. So when you get more than one cultures around the world saying the same thing about the same topic, you have to look at it seriously.
Yeah, for sure, man. And it is also, again, just documented in other cultures. I mean, the Aztecs and such are showing what looks to be a dang cynocephaly. It's not wearing its armor, but it's wearing the same stuff that they're wearing, tribal-based stuff. Okay. Why the heck? Again, I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, anyone out there. What the heck are the odds of the Greeks and Romans even knowing about the Aztecs? Would they even have cared? Probably not, correct? So why would they have come up with a huge story about the cynocephaly based off of something that the Aztecs were depicting? They wouldn't even have known.
No, and if they had known, they wouldn't probably try to conquer or take the property anyway. So
Right? Exactly. So, okay. And I don't think that the Egyptian culture and the Greek and Romans too really would have had that much interaction as well, man. And they're also at different points of time as too. So the whole thing with Anubis and such really would have no reason to have been influenced off of the Greeks and Romans. Because again, I know later on Cleopatra had a relationship with one of the somebody from the Roman army, but this is towards the end. I'm speaking about way before, okay, like like at the beginning of the Egyptian culture and such like that. They wouldn't have known about or had interactions with modern day Greece and Rome. So yeah, that's what's interesting about that, because obviously towards the end when Egypt was falling and like I said, Rome was conquering everything. Again, I'm talking about Greece here. We're not talking about Rome. Yeah, the Romans are still speaking about these things, but Greece was before Rome. I mean, yes, there are some similarities there, but what people don't really realize is more or less what the Romans did is they took Athens from the Greek, okay, and they told them, look, you can still have Athens and act like it's Greece, but it's not. And if you got a problem with that, well, you know what's going to happen next, okay? So that is why, as weird as it sounds, the Romans were very interested and very intrigued and also very influenced by the Greek, even though they took everything from them, as interesting as it is. So they obviously had a lot of the same historical beliefs because they took it all and inherited it. So that's why I'm not referring to Rome here. It's just interesting, man, because you have just a bunch of different cultures, dude, that are making references to this. And here's the really interesting fact before we wrap this up. There's a lot of clout, man, saying that guess who found Canada? The Chinese, okay? Way back in the day, which puts another spin on things. How long have other cultures been introduced to America? I mean, why in the Grand Canyon are there hieroglyphics that are Egyptian? But wait a second, the Egyptians were never here. So I just encourage
Well,
people, yeah, to realize that there are a lot of other cultures, man, that have been here before and might not have necessarily posted up or could have got here by mistake or been deceased. But moral of the whole thing is there is a lot of old history that is super interesting, but it also ties into a lot of stuff that, Brian and I were speaking about tonight. So
yeah, and not only that, but this was something I just recently learned in the last few months is in the Egyptian tombs, there is copper that has been carbon dated and molecularly matched to a certain mine in the UP of Upper Michigan. So how does that copper from the UP of Upper Michigan get into your burial tombs and things like that in ancient Egypt that thousands of years old?
again, it's just we really underestimate the aspect of preservance of people, man. Okay. The reason I'm going to say this now is we always underestimate everything. Okay. We tend to look at our ancestors as primitive, yet there are paintings in caves with Neanderthals and Denisovians of what looks to be like artwork. Okay, well, if they were such big dummies, why is the artwork there? Okay, I mean, obviously they had some sort of recognition of, hey, I exist. How many people get in shipwrecks and such and are found floating on just a piece of wood? Not many, but a lot of times people have been found like that. How many people have tried to come from potentially areas on small little makeshift crafts and somehow made it across the ocean? It happens. How many times have people been in accidents and boats and on an inflatable raft and ended up getting rescued? Moral of what I'm trying to say is there's really no logical reason why an Egyptian ship, a Chinese ship, or any of those ancient ships couldn't have made it either, because those ships would have been a lot better than a piece of a broken ship that you're floating on, okay? And if
Yeah.
people, yes, and if people are making it in those, okay, yeah, there's probably a lot of those ships that didn't make it, but you're gonna make it even a what? A broken clock strike twice a day. Someone's gonna make it eventually.
Yep, exactly. And more than one is going to. I mean, to be able to get into the UPs, I don't know how many different ways there are, other than through the seaway, and mine the copper and take that all the way back to Egypt for the Egyptians to use in their ceremonies for burial.
Exactly.
That kind of
So
shoots the Columbus theory down. So people better get their erasers out for their history books.
dude, seriously, man, like I said, this everyone should always want to learn. And on a final note, right here, something else, man, that is super awesome right here. In around 100 burial sites ranging from 6,000 to 10,000 years ago, 10 women were found with weaponry and heavy hunting gear. It is now believed 30 to 50% of big game hunters in the past were women. This was unrecognized initially because people that found it were sexist. So, pretty interesting stuff right there as well, man. I mean, that just shows you again in historical aspects that now you have very plentiful proof that women, which no reason they shouldn't be, are just as badass as dudes and are hunting too. So,
That's right. I can't imagine. You got your Ronda Rouseys back there with a spear and a shield going to kick some ass.
right, dude. So, yeah, I mean, again, it just shows you that we don't necessarily always know everything. And even when we're documenting history, we're only documenting potentially what we're finding at the point in time. So as we find more things, we have to just kind of rearrange history. So it's definitely interesting. And I just wanted to bring those topics up to you, man, because I figured that would give you a little bit of things to think about. And thanks again for popping in tonight, man. And to the audience, definitely go over and check out Brian's thread. I'll have his link up like always. And here in the future too, him and I shall be putting out, well, you'll just have to wait and see. Some pretty good stuff. Well, I should say, we always put out good stuff, but you get the meaning. But either way, thanks for hanging out with us tonight, everybody. And yeah, Brian, thanks for your time, man. I appreciate you.
Oh, much love to you and much love to everybody who's listening.
Ooh, you legends, you. If you did make it this far tonight in this episode, I truly do appreciate you. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share my content. Feed the algorithm, and we will see you very soon.